New Mexico Territory, 1883. The waning afternoon light sank low behind the Black Butte, stretching elongated shadows over the Gila River. Jack Harlan ambled his weary mount along the shore, steering the beast along the gritty path. He figured it'd be just another uneventful jaunt before hitting the settlement. But then he caught sight of a tiny shape by the edge of the stream. At first, he mistook it for some critter or perhaps a piece of flotsam, but drawing nearer, he saw it was a kid, an Apache lass, barely past 7 or 8, huddled solo with her legs drawn snug to her torso, frame quaking. Jack reined his horse to a gentle stop. There was something in her muffled sobs, restrained like she was fighting to stay silent, that signaled this was no everyday scene. The Badlands could be ruthless, and young ones didn't stray off by themselves unless disaster had struck hard. He swept his gaze over the surroundings for hints of a campsite, snapped twigs, remnants of a blaze, impressions in the soil, whatever. But the waterway's edge lay hushed, undisturbed, no stir, no murmurs, only the child and the constant murmur of chilly current. Jack sensed a twist in his gut. She had no business being out here, not in this treacherous patch of earth. He dismounted with care and edged forward, palms out, to prove his intentions were pure. "Steady there," he murmured kindly, pitch soft. "I'm not fixin' to harm ya." The girl went rigid and glanced up quick, wide chestnut eyes brimming with terror. Grime streaked her face and her locks dangled in matted coils as though she'd fled for leagues. She hugged a little pouch to her bosom, frayed, ragged at the seams, bound by a slender cord. She held her tongue at the outset, just observed him, shuddering, debating if he was worth the risk. When she parted her lips at last, a single term escaped: lost. It was scarcely audible, yet it struck Jack fiercer than lead shot. A youngster adrift in Apache lands often spelled one grim truth: peril lurked close. She'd either bolted from a threat, or some horror had snatched her kin away. Jack dropped to one knee nearby, shrinking his stature to seem less imposing, more secure. "Where's your folks?" he queried tenderly. She shook her head, gaze welling once more. No reply, no guidance, zilch. Jack bore the burden of her isolation and dread like a laden pack. He couldn't abandon her, not like this. His own path had been forged in grief and endless miles. He'd witnessed homesteaders, troopers, and Apache endure crushing trials, but that anguish in a young one's stare awakened a primal urge in him, a guardian's fire. "All right then," he breathed, drawing a measured inhale. "Let's head to safer ground." He offered his palm. She wavered, peering at the foliage as if dreading an ambush from the shadows, but presently she slipped her wee fingers into his. Jack hoisted her onto the saddle with delicacy, draping his duster over her form. She nestled against it, quivering, even as the air hung mild. As he swung up after her, Jack fixed his stare on the horizon. The stillness gnawed at him. The arid wastes seldom rested easy without cause. He urged his steed back to the route, puzzling over the calamity. A stray taught by the Gila might signal outlaws, a dispersed clan, a botched ambush. The girl latched onto his sleeve, yet avoided a backward glance. Whatever nightmare she'd witnessed or escaped had scarred her soul deep. Jack's thoughts swirled with inquiries, but he held back. She'd share when ready. They traversed spiky scrub and sleek ochre bluffs that shimmered like coals in the fading glow. Jack kept eyeing the terrain for traces: hoof scars, cart ruts, sole prints, aught to hint at foul play. But the ground bore only sporadic disruptions, like hasty intruders had barreled through heedless. The girl's breaths came ragged. Each jolt, each whisper of fronds set her to startle. He yearned to soothe her panic, but utterances seemed puny. Safeguarding her trumped solace, and mile by mile Jack's unease swelled. Some atrocity had unfolded close by. The sun at last slipped under the rim, streaking the heavens in bands of amber and violet. Jack chose to halt by a huddle of stones where the river curved abrupt. A solid vantage, elevated perch, tight sight lines, ample shelter to spot incoming menace. He alighted and eased the girl to the dirt. She clung to his duster cuff, unwilling to release. "You're safe now," he consoled her quietly. He kindled a modest blaze, flames tame and concealed. The girl perched near, her gaze probing the gloom. Jack sensed her alarm as a palpable force. As she thawed her palms by the heat, Jack delved into his gear and fished out a chunk of stale loaf. She took it wordlessly, nibbling deliberate, robotic-like. He regarded her traits: prominent bones, sweeping fringes, a subdued resilience under the fright. She was Apache through and through, and Jack grasped the stakes. Folks would be hunting her, a kin group, a band, a dam somewhere frantic and shattered. He itched to probe further, but each time his lips stirred, the girl averted, knuckles whitening on the pouch like it cradled her entire existence. When the constellations sharpened overhead, she ventured words anew. Mere fractured phrases. Mother, vanished, wicked folk. Jack felt the atmosphere thicken. Brigands, marauders, turncoats, any might bear the blame. No matter the tale the wee one had endured by fortune and grit. Jack gazed at the inky frontier, teeth set. He'd not set out to play savior that morn, but Providence had crossed her trail with his for a purpose he daren't dismiss. He tucked his duster snugger round her and husked, "I'll track her down, swear it." In that instant, he sensed his world tilting. Jack navigated the jagged Badlands track with caution, the little Apache girl clutching his duster as gusts swirled grit about them. The terrain weighed denser, more hushed, unnaturally serene. He spied new boot impressions dug firm in the clay, fresh, perhaps mere hours prior. Carriages had lumbered past crude, carving lopsided furrows. Then came markers of a fray, churned gravel, a snapped thong, and flecks of crusted crimson. Ere he could query, the girl jabbed toward the slim ravine, tone quavering. "Brigands! They seized my ma!" Her declaration lingered like a harbinger he couldn't evade. Jack's jaw locked. He knew the cutthroats prowling these reaches spared no one sans motive. Ransom, grudge, or spite. Aiding the girl courted doom head-on, and a callower Jack might have veered off, but her faith, her raw need, and the crush of this realm drove him onward. He prodded his mount toward the gorge's dim maw. Faint murmurs rebounded off the crags, coarse and lax. The girl pressed her cheek to his duster, trembling. Jack firmed his hold on the reins. No matter the snare ahead, he'd confront it. For her. They eased into the defile where sheer faces loomed on either flank, caging echoes in gleam. The trail constricted, twisting serpentine. Jack dismounted, resting a sure palm on the girl's arm. "Hide yonder by them stones. Stay put." Her saucer eyes begged for vows. Jack dipped his chin resolute and breathed, "I'll fetch her home." She hunkered amid the slabs, pouch in death grip. Jack unslung his carbine mute and advanced. Every stride dragged leaden, strain coiling in his breast. Yet he pressed on, drawn by the subdued chatter filtering through the chasm's lults. As Jack inched nearer, he hunkered amid a thicket peering down on a wee glade ringed by outcrops. There they sprawled, 3 renegades, idling round a bound Apache dame, lashed to a post. She bore welts yet drew breath, manacles on her limbs, glared defiant amid the ache. One rogue towed gravel at her boots. Another strode, eyeing the route like he sensed pursuit. Jack sized them up keen, duo packing 6 shooters, one toting a lever gun. They struck as types spoiling for strife, not parley. Jack evened his respiration, digits twenching the stock. He reckoned a reckless charge had spell his end, and hers. So he bided, charting their rhythms. The greenest rogue strayed from the bunch, restless and sloppy. The chief, a marred brute with a battered hat-edge, hovered nearest the dame, vigilant on her shifts. Jack weighed his plays. Dropping the sentry first might buy leeway, but one thunderous crack did rouse the pack swift. He gulped deep. Rescuing them demanded haste, accuracy, and chance, and Jack had banked on but the former pair. He edged a touch, coiling to strike, when a soft scuffle sounded astern. His ticker lurched. Had the girl trailed him? He pivoted scant to glimpse a petite visage, spying from a boulder deeper along the way. She'd slunk after, powerless to linger while her dame endured. Jack signaled fierce for cover. She bobbed her head, brine tracing her lashes, compliant. Jack knew his margin for error had shrunk. Not just souls hung in balance, he'd stepped into guardian for both, witting or nay. He braced, then slithered to a sharper vantage. When the roving rogue veered to the wall, Jack pounced. He emerged soundless, seized the lout from rear and cracked a solid thump to the skull with his barrel. The rogue crumpled mute. Jack hauled the limp form behind an escarpment. But as he wheeled back to the glade, a harsh bark rang. "Oi, where's he vanished to?" The marred chief advanced, iron out, sweeping the zone. Jack's blood thrummed. Subtlety had fled. With naught but grit left, Jack leveled his piece and squeezed. A crisp report felled the strider ere he twitched. The survivor lunged for shelter, spitting lead as slugs kissed flint. Jack dropped behind a monolith, peel dinned in his skull. The Apache dame wailed, straining her tethers. Jack darted fleet, swapping spots to dodge the trap. Sandy rupted nigh, as another round bit turf. He panted sharp, gauging the span. One final window, a swift, unerring blast, ere the rogue zeroed the dame or the skulking girl. Jack whipped round the stone, triggering preempt. The slug bit home, toppling the final foe. Quiet blanketed the ravine, pierced soul by the stream's far-off drone. Jack held his aim, ears pricked, but silence reigned. He bolted to the dame, sawing the cords with his blade. She wheezed, yet straightened proud, vigor surging as shackles parted. Her stare flicked beyond him to the stones. "My child," she husked. Jack inclined with ease. "Secure, she's holden." The dame's frame eased at last. The girl burst from concealment the instant she spied her maw unbound, keening as she flung into the embrace. Jack retreated a pace, granting room, a profound stir blooming within. He'd arrived a passerby, yet he'd depart this gulch transformed. The dame met his eyes with thanks profound, a wordless bond beyond reckoning. Jack exhaled measured, the gravity of it all alighting. Every soul met a crossroads in time, and he knew this was his. Aiding them wasn't mere whim, it was his calling. New Mexico, 1883, a solitary rancher stumbled upon a Navajo child weeping at the creek's edge, and one bold decision would alter his fate eternally. Outlaws, peril, and a frantic parent lie in store in this pulse-pounding frontier yarn. For more spine-tingling prairie sagas, sign up, tap that thumbs up, and ride with us on each quest. Saddle up, we're off.